Well, it's a disgusting day out again, pouring the rain, water everywhere. But I was just outside and saw this little guy. Let's run over here and see if we can still find him. Yep, he's still there. I believe that's a red-headed woodpecker on this tree here. Try not to scare him. He's going to town on that tree. There he goes. All right, now we got our nature show out of the way. We have a C5 Corvette, yellow C5 Corvette in the shop, and it is a twin turbo. One there, one there. So it's an STS rear mount, obviously. We got it in to do some work. The customer did pick up a pair of new turbos. They're a little bit bigger. He's just gonna upgrade them. So we're gonna swap those out for him. We're gonna do a tune-up, and we're in the middle of doing the oil change right now. But it's a pretty clean car. 6-speed. Let's take a quick peek at his new turbo here. These are still on the small side, but they are twins. So, and this one is definitely bigger to one that he has on there now. So hopefully we don't have too much in the realm of fabrication to put these on there. So let's get into it. We'll finish the oil change first. I didn't want to put old oil through a new turbo, so he wanted the oil change anyway, so we're going to finish that up and then we'll get these turbos swapped out. Finishing up the oil change here. As you know, this is a STS turbo rear mount. So you do have to pump the oil back up to the motor. And to do that, the older STS systems had this quick release at the oil fill. So you pop that off, and now you can unscrew your oil fill. Got the oil change done, and we'll do just a quick walk around here. As you guys know, I also have an STS turbo system on my Turbo GMC over there. It is a single system. The Corvettes and most of the Camaros have a twin turbo setup, so they take two smaller turbos. But normally you would have the Corvette would have the muffler somewhere in this area. So you remove the muffler, put the turbo in its place. Of course, you need an oil feed that's coming from the motor, and it's got a T right here that feeds each turbo. There's the wastegate on either side. It's right in the exhaust. Of course, and then you need a vacuum / boost reference line. That is also T'd and feeds each one. You have oil feed in. Of course, you need a drain out. So again, one on either side. It comes over to a T, and this is kind of unique in where there's not a pump back here to push it back up. There's actually a pump up front right here. So that actually sucks the oil from the turbo and shoots it back up. This is the line from the turbo. This is the line going up to that oil fill cap, which returns it to the motor. And of course, here's a switch in line. So if this pump was to ever fail, excuse me, you could do some serious damage because it would constantly be feeding the turbos and not returning the oil. So eventually you would end up pushing oil out your turbos, out the tailpipe, and it would starve the motor for oil. So this is a switch with a small alarm on the inside that if this pump should ever fail, it warns you. So also, while we're up here, it does have an intercooler with the blow-off valve rail in the intercooler. There is a catch can, which we need to check that. Definitely drain your catch can often if your car has a catch can, because they get pretty full pretty quick. But this is the charge pipe one here, one there. Again, we have twins, so we have one up from each side, and they actually pipe up through the rocker panel. You can actually see this side better. Goes back, runs all down through this rocker panel, up over the wheel well, and then back down, and you can see where it feeds into the turbo. Well, actually the turbo feeds it. So you have, this is actually an air filter. It goes up, and the air filters are actually housed up behind the tail lights. Again, two of them, two turbos. So you suck air in, compress it, comes out, goes up around the wheel well. Actually, you can kind of see that pipe right there. Around the wheel well, up the rocker panels, over to the intercooler, which then puts it up into the motor. So it does seem a little complicated because they're so back there, but as you can see, there is very, very little room under the hood of these Corvettes. So, and the Camaros, the fourth gen Camaros are not any better. They're probably worse. So, this is a little bit complicated, like I said, just because there's so much piping, but way more. I mean, under the hood, it's almost untouched. So you still have all that room, and then back here you have tons of room because you remove your factory muffler. So I am a fan of these systems. I know a lot of people don't like them, but I am a fan of these. They work pretty well. So enough of that. Let's get these turbos, tackle getting these off. First thing we're going to do is disconnect the oil drain lines. Next, we're going to start unbolting these turbos. This side had some heat tape, which we removed. There's 4-bolt flange here, 4-bolt flange here, and of course silicone couplers we need to remove to get this off, and we still have our oil feed line up top. Now this side has, I guess it's a wrap too, it's just bigger, and they have some tie wire holding it on, so we'll get all that cut away so we can get to it. One of the first problems I see here as I'm loosening all these clamps up is I guess a hose clamp got misplaced at some time, and they use zip ties, and zip ties will definitely not hold. You can see how loose that is. They will not hold boost at all, and this is actually the charge side, so chances are they probably had a boost leak there, and maybe that's what that is. So a little bit of a residue on the paint there, but we'll get that fixed up and get a good hose clamp put back on there when we put the new turbo on. With all the couplers loose, the oil feed undone, and then these 4 bolts, we still have one holding it in, but as you can see, it's loose now. So one more bolt, and this whole turbo and the tailpipe or downpipe, whatever you want to call it, will come out. We'll hold the new turbo up there, mock it up, see how much different it is, and then swap this tailpipe over. With our old turbo off, of course, we have our tailpipe off, and it was definitely time for an upgrade for these turbos because they have quite a bit of play in them. See if I can get a... It's so hard to film this. And there you go. Quite a bit of play, so definitely time for an upgrade. We'll pull the new one out here and set them side by side and compare the two. And the very first thing we'll notice on these is obviously this one's cleaner, new, fresh, clean. It's got a coated exhaust housing, but the clocking is way off, so we'll definitely have to clock the exhaust and compressor side. And you always want, I'll show you later, but you always want this drain pointed straight down, or as near as straight down as you can possibly make it. So let's we'll get this mocked up, get them clocked real close, and then we'll go from there. And to clock these, you just loosen all these bolts up a little bit, and you can just take and spin the housing separate from the center section. So we'll get the exhaust side. I still have to loosen the intake or the compressor side, and then we'll clock it the best we can throw it up on the vehicle and just make sure everything's good, and then we'll snug everything back up. All right, we threw the turbo back up there, put a couple bolts just kind of loosely in the flange, the inlet flange. We don't need our exhaust yet. That'll, you know, that has to be, if that's off, there's nothing we can do except cut that tailpipe. So we're going to assume that's correct now. We have to make this right and change that if it's not. The compressor side is pointing up towards our intake. We have a little bit of play there. Of course, our air filter side, air intake side, this moves, so we're good there. And again, on the center section, we want it indexed or clocked so that it's as level as possible. Remember, it's gravity drained out of the turbo itself until it gets sucked out of these lines. So we want this as flat as possible. So we look pretty good there. We're gonna go ahead and snug a few of these up. We'll pull the turbo back off and tighten everything back down. We got both turbos all clocked. Everything swapped over from the old turbos. The oil feed fitting, the drain fitting, and the tailpipe, downpipe, whatever you want to call it. So both that's done on both turbos, so they're ready to go back on. We did take and clean the couplers all up, wash them down in soapy water, get any residue off, and also cleaned up our flanges. So they're nice and clean, ready to go. Now we just need to bolt the turbos back on, hook everything back up. We got one of the turbos hung back up on there. Now there is some play in that 4-bolt flange up here, so we do have a little movement. So I think I'm going to hang the other one there and then line up the tips and snug all them back up. And then we just have our couplers to go back on. I got the oil feed here. We do have to hook our return line back up, but let's get the other side hanging on there and get them squared up. Got everything hooked back up, everything lined up pretty good. No major issues, some adjustment here and there with the lines and just getting everything hooked back up. But overall, pretty good fit. We did get, the customer actually got some turbo blankets from STS. They're pretty nice. Got that one installed already. We'll put this one on. They have these tabs, and we get held on by these springs that kind of wrap around it. Hook on, just wrap around. So we'll get this other one installed on there and get this thing fired up. Sounds good so far. No leaks. This motor is pretty much stock except for the turbo, so it doesn't have a camera or anything, but it sounds good. Check up here, make sure we have oil returning, and we definitely do. Set you down over here and give it a little rev. Put it back up in there and double check our work. Make sure everything's dry and clean. Looks good. Everything appears to be tight, clean, dry. We'll go over everything, just make sure it's extra snug, run it through a heat cycle or two, and just go back over the bolts. But so far, it looks good. Now we just have the tune-up to do. Alright guys, as you can see, the Corvette is gone. We didn't really film anymore. As it turns out, the spark plugs that the customer brought were wrong for the car. They needed to be a colder heat range. So instead of installing the wires now, we just decided to wait, install the plugs and wires. We can kind of do that all at the same time. So we did take it for a drive. It ran really good. Seems to be an improvement over the other turbos. He still has to get it tuned. The customer, like I said, stopped by. He wasn't really interested in being on film, so we just maybe we can talk him into it next time. But it's a nice little car, runs good. He's gonna have a lot of fun with it. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Have a good day. We did make some progress on LS Extreme. Not really. We just have the fender sitting here. This is the fender we're going to use, but obviously it's just sitting there. No body yet. Soon to come.